Sushan, try to stand where you talk. Okay.
Get in front of the line, right? Yesterday you saw the original of the room,
Yeah.
a lot of space.
Good morning, everyone. We are Group RJ195. My name is Sushan, and these are my teammates, Jackson, Chun Yun, Sean, Vivian, and Xiu Qi. So before I introduce our project proper, let me tell you a story. So this story is about two boys named Bob and Patrick. See, this is Patrick and that's Bob. So their story begins when they enroll in Pineapple Secondary School. They were introduced to this unfamiliar concept of community service facilitated by the even more unfamiliar CIP scheme. They were told to fulfill at least 6 hours of community service yearly and that all their volunteering involvements would be recorded under the scheme. So this marks the start of their volunteering experiences under the CIP scheme. So initially, Bob had doubts. Was he really capable enough to serve the community? He didn't know much about the social issues plaguing Singapore society, and he had no clue how to start his own projects. But luckily, under the CIP scheme, schools and VWOs provide students with resources that equip them with the necessary skills to volunteer. After utilizing some of these resources, Bob felt confident and he felt ready to serve the community. So afterwards, Bob starts to participate enthusiastically in community service. As he volunteers, he learns more about Singapore society and more about the problems that it faces. He develops empathy for the less fortunate, and 4 years later, after graduating from secondary school and leaving the CIP scheme, Bob continues to be an active volunteer. On the other hand, Patrick thinks to himself, hey, since all our community involvements are recorded under the CIP scheme, if I were to participate actively in community service, I would have a great portfolio. With this in mind, Patrick seems to be committed to community service. But 4 years later, after graduating from secondary school as well, he eventually stops volunteering altogether. So this story pretty much sums up our entire project. Our project, iCare, stands for Inspiring the Cultivation of Long-Term Effects, Awareness Raising, Equipping of Skills. And our topic is the influence of the CIP scheme on students' motivations to volunteer. For our project, we chose to focus on the 3 impacts illustrated by the stories of Bob and Patrick earlier. To recap these 3 impacts once again, firstly, the CIP scheme increases students' motivations to volunteer through strengthening their volunteering abilities. Many students are reluctant to volunteer because they feel that they lack the necessary skills. The CIP scheme provides them with resources and equips them with these skills that they feel they need. And this removes their doubts and increases their motivations to volunteer. Next, the CIP scheme provides platforms for students to volunteer, and these platforms expose them to the realities of Singapore society. As students volunteer, they develop empathy for the less fortunate, and this increases their motivations in the long run. However, for other students, the CIP scheme could cultivate extrinsic motivations instead. Several students volunteer to clock the minimum number of hours or to benefit from having a good portfolio. These motivations are unsustainable in the long run. After leaving the CIP scheme, these students' motivations to volunteer eventually decrease. So on this note, to ensure that the influence of our CIP scheme is positive and long-lasting, our group came up with our action plan, CARE, which consists of 3 components: a mobile app to raise awareness, a program to equip skills, and a website to provide students with resources and guidance. Now, I will be passing on the time to Sean, and let us rewind back 4 years to see how things could have been different for Bob and Patrick's volunteering experiences with our action plan, CARE.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sean. Welcome back to 4 years ago at the very beginning of Bob and Patrick's volunteering journeys. This time, we'll be introducing to them our mobile app, Ending Apathy. Ending Apathy is the first component of our action plan and aims to foster empathy in students such as Bob and Patrick by exposing them to social issues. Ending Apathy is a role-playing game in which players complete challenges with either a handicapped or disadvantaged avatar simulating their respective beneficiaries. Players are first required to create a personalized avatar to be their virtual representative in the game. They will then participate in mini-games, each related to the 7 specific service categories. These games will simulate the plights faced by beneficiaries, allowing players to experience the situation firsthand. Many of you may know the game of tennis, but have you ever heard of the game blind tennis? An example of one of the mini-games under the special needs category is blind tennis. Players will have to wear a pair of headphones as a 3-dimensional audio environment is required. They will then play a game of blind tennis using only their hearing. The game is simple. The sound of a tennis ball will be played, simulating a tennis game. Players will then have to react accordingly to the source of the sound and swing their smartphones, which simulates the racket to hit the ball back. At the end of the game, players will be able to earn credits based on their performances. These credits serve as a form of currency for players to customize and personalize their very own avatar. Another example of a mini-game is Sim, which falls under the community category. This game is a poverty simulation where players are first given a small sum of starting money and then instructed to make wise rational choices to manage their finances and survive for as long as possible. Players are offered basic necessities like food, shelter, investments, and education. Yet, their choices are limited as they are forced to manage their limited capital wisely. Through these mini-games, players are able to experience the daily struggle faced by the less fortunate and will become more empathetic towards them. By stepping in the shoes of the disadvantaged, students will develop greater empathy for them and thereby increasing their motivations to volunteer. Of course, this role-playing game is not the only feature of our app. Upon completion of the mini-game, players will be shown a short real-life story of a beneficiary. The story informs them that what they have just gone through in the mini-games is not just real, but very prevalent in our society, further increasing their empathy towards the beneficiaries. Lastly, to end off the mini-games, a link will be provided to direct players to our website Heart to Heart, where they can find relevant information and resources for them to react to the situation. Siew Qi will be touching on this component later on. So, why will our app Ending Apathy appeal to our target audience? We have found that the usage of smartphones is very prevalent in Singapore, with 88% of Singaporeans owning a smartphone, making our app largely accessible. Furthermore, 91% of our survey respondents have expressed their interest for such a mobile app, further emphasizing its appeal. We have also discovered that games are particularly well suited for supporting educational programs such as ours. In fact, they are more effective in cultivating empathy among students due to the immersive nature of games. After experiencing what our app has to offer, students like Bob and Patrick will be more emotionally impacted and more empathetic towards the less fortunate, increasing the motivations to volunteer and expanding on the positive impact of the CIP scheme. At the same time, the empathy developed will sustain their motivations to volunteer, thus diminishing the negative impacts of the CIP scheme. I will now pass on the time to Vivian, who will be touching on the second component of CARE, program skills.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Vivian. After using Ending Apathy, Bob and Patrick now feel more motivated to volunteer. However, they still feel doubtful about their voluntary capabilities and are thus hesitant to volunteer. Hence, presenting to you the second component of our action plan, Program Skills. Program Skills is a 15-week-long program that will be taking place in the first term. It aims to prepare students for their volunteering journey by ensuring that students gain knowledge and are imparted with lifelong skills. Not only will students learn new skills, they will also get opportunities to brainstorm and collaborate with one another. Interested students can sign up for Program Skills through their respective schools. Students will first attend a week of workshops and will then be grouped into volunteer groups. For the first week, students will attend workshops that are conducted by relevant volunteer welfare organizations. These potential stakeholders will be conducting the respective workshops under each service category. Students will learn relevant skills and knowledge that will prepare them for service in the 7 service categories. The workshops will be conducted regionally and thus easing facilitation of the workshops. For example, under the service category elderly, students will be taught conversational dialects during the course. Basically, after being taught certain useful phrases of conversational Hokkien, students will be encouraged to internalize the content covered by filling up a short quiz. Prior to the workshops, students will then be allocated into volunteer groups. Students will indicate 3 service categories that they are most interested in. Based on their first, second, and third choices, students will be then allocated into their volunteer groups respectively. Fortnightly meetings will allow volunteer groups to meet up and brainstorm project ideas. Each meeting will focus on one of the service categories and will be chaired by the volunteer group consisting of students who are interested in that service category. Within each volunteer group, students will share their ideas, discuss about past projects, and brainstorm ideas for new projects that are relevant to the service category. For future references and for students who wish to take part in these projects, meeting minutes will be uploaded onto our website, Heart to Heart, which will be elaborated by Silti later on. So, why will program skills appeal to our target audience? 7 in 10 students have indicated that they are more motivated to volunteer to learn new skills. Research shows that students who lack the skills are more likely to feel unmotivated to volunteer. Thus, after going through the workshops, students like Bob and Patrick will feel more motivated to serve the community as their volunteering skills are strengthened. Moreover, the introduction of a social component through the formation of volunteer groups will allow students to find community service more interesting and engaging. Hence, we have discovered in our survey that 8 in 10 students feel more motivated to volunteer because of their friends. Hence, through program skills, students like Bob and Patrick will feel more motivated to volunteer because of newfound friends instead of personal benefits. With all the components of program skills put together, it expands the 2 positive impact. Hence, with that, I will pass my time to Silti, who will be elaborating on the 3rd component of care, Heart to Heart. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Silti. After participating in program skills, Bob and Patrick are now better equipped with skills to volunteer and are now more motivated, more confident in doing so. In order for care to continue being effective in the long term, we introduced a website, Heart to Heart, which is to accompany Bob and Patrick in the long term and continue motivating them to volunteer. Heart to Heart aims to ensure that students are able to maintain their empathetic motivations and skills in the long run by providing resources and opportunities to volunteer. Heart to Heart consists of 3 components: resources, forum, and online journal. Our research has shown that students who are interested in starting their own volunteering projects are hampered by the difficult administrative processes involved, as well as a lack of opportunities. Luckily, Heart to Heart has the component resources. Under resources, students can find out more information about volunteer welfare organizations, and for those who want to start their own CIP projects, the students will have to first obtain permission from their respective schools. Then they have to submit a proposal. For their self-initiated projects. After having completed the projects, they will have to submit an after-action plan or AAR. Templates for both the proposal and the AAR will be provided for in the website. Their proposals and AARs will be subsequently saved in the archive, which other students can access. If the students are interested in taking up a project that was discussed during one of the volunteer group meetings, they can go to project ideas under the forum to access meeting groups. He can also brainstorm his friends under the brainstorming board. However, should they run into problems that they cannot solve, they can use the Q&A feature to consult seniors and teachers. After finalizing the project, the students can publicize the project on the publicity board. After volunteering, should they desire to publish their reflections using the online journal, they would have the choice of setting their reflections as private and public. As the use of social media is on the rise, with usage among youths aged 15 to 24 at 97%, the social media aspect of the website, particularly the forum, will promote volunteering and provide opportunities to volunteer. Moreover, with the resources and forum components of our website, students will be able to increase their volunteering abilities and become more motivated to volunteer. Students volunteer more when they are better equipped with the necessary skills and knowledge. This is shown by survey results as one of the main barriers to students participating in CIP is the doubts of their own capabilities. Moreover, as frequent reflections have been shown to increase empathy in student volunteers, the online journals enabling of frequent reflection increases the students' empathetic motivations. Students who have read other students' reflections are also positively influenced. Now, students who initially volunteered because of pragmatic concerns are now more motivated to volunteer due to altruistic reasons. All the components of Heart to Heart thus extends both positive impacts by increasing students' motivations to volunteer, by cultivating empathy and increasing volunteering abilities. Heart to Heart also diminishes the negative impact by developing empathetic motivations in students, thus ensuring sustainable long-term service. Now I'll pass the time on to Cheng Yu, who will be continuing our project. Thank you.
A very good afternoon to one and all. I'm Cheng Yu. Every student here in this room today, including myself, was once like Bob or Patrick in our secondary school years. Our experience in serving the community was facilitated by the CIP scheme in one way or another. Just a quick recap. Our group has identified 3 ways in which the CIP scheme can influence students' motivations to serve. First of all, the CIP scheme exposes students to various social issues in our society. This exposure helps the students to develop a sense of empathy from which intrinsic motivations originate. A research done by independent sector shows that exposure to volunteerism at a young age will help in engaging teenagers in lifelong service. Therefore, students like Bob will continue to serve the community even after their graduation from secondary school. Next, with the provision of guidance and support, the CIP scheme equips students with relevant resources and skills which strengthens their volunteering abilities. As research has clearly shown that people's motivations are governed by their beliefs of their own capability. By strengthening students' volunteering ability, the CIP scheme is able to increase their motivations to serve. On the flip side, due to the incentives it presents, the motivations cultivated by the CIP scheme might be unsustainable in the long run. Students such as Patrick, who stopped volunteering immediately after their graduation from secondary school, when the rewards offered by the CIP system are no longer consequential to them. To tackle this issue, as well as to enhance our positive impact, our group proposed Project CARE, which works alongside the CIP scheme in motivating students to serve. Our mobile app, Ending Apathy, will be designed to foster empathy in students through raising awareness about the social issues. Program Skills aims to equip students with relevant skills and promotes collaboration between students. Our website, Heart to Heart, it disseminates information and is established as a student volunteer network. This three-step approach in facilitating experience gives students a holistic view and a comprehensive understanding of the social issues in Singapore, going beyond the action of volunteering and cultivating a sense of civic responsibility. This is achieved by expanding the positive impact of the CIP scheme, as our action plan accentuates features of CIP scheme that can motivate students to serve. It also diminishes the negative impact of the CIP scheme, as it cultivates intrinsic motivations, allowing students to develop a more altruistic view towards volunteerism. These motivations are more sustainable in the long run. However, at the same time, we do acknowledge that there are some limitations to our project. Firstly, our action plan can only facilitate the participation of the students in secondary school. It has no control over graduated students, as they are no longer under the same scheme. This reduces the long-term effects of our action plan, as any follow-ups targeting the graduated students would be difficult to implement. And on the other hand, our action plan is limited in effectiveness for students who have no interest in serving the community at all. Since our action plan works alongside the CIP scheme, if the students are already unmotivated by the CIP scheme, they will not receive any benefit from our project. And before I end our presentation, I would like everyone to recall to think about your most memorable volunteering experience, to think about why you volunteered. Our motivations to serve can be influenced by the CIP scheme. Let us all hope the positive impact be enhanced and the negative impact diminished. Maybe we are working towards a future where Bob's story will be something that resonates with all of us. Thank you.
Need to work on your ending. Only hear one thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, this is something else. Idea. Because your assessment will only end after you go back to your seats, right?
Yes, very lessons.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Nothing Q&A. But I think I think students start off well as the first speaker. Telling some kind of story, right? About your work and everything. Your personal experience, this is some personal. Otherwise, you know what? I can't remember. But anyway, that was a good and very important tool. I think overall, I think it's a improvement from your first try, right? I think for many of you, the way you step not very Today eye contact, I'm the only audience member, right? So I mean, looking at them, for most of you that eye contact, but make sure during the actual presentation you also look at those at the side. Try to look at the screen frequently. I think you have the one hand in asking. I think there's some kind of rhetorical question when you use your right hand. I think the pause might need to let them think. Alright, you cannot just answer immediately your question. More than anything, or then sink in, consider, and then you want to just look around and make sure that everybody is thinking about it. When you pause, and then you look around, you can pause it. Then after that, then you answer. Then you provide an answer for it. Not very sure whether this is like a combination. Before your scene, the slide just went by immediately. Okay, hands shouldn't dangle by the side. In or from, because it's very awkward and stuff like that. By the side, it's very weird, right? If you want to refer to your, as I mentioned, your two cards should be something that you can hold in the palm of your hand, right? Then at least you can refer. Then the other hand is still free. You can still gesture someone. If you have a bit too cut, the first step people like this, like, HOP, then, if you move it around, then it's very distracting. But if something small, right, can be hard to palm of the hand, right, you hold like that, right, you don't hold like that. Right, hold like that, then you move is also distracting. Slightly like that, as well, but still like, it will be better if you hold it in the palm of the hand, it's not. I think some need more gestures. Again, resting the leg. You're not resting properly. Stand firm. Within, you have a gesture for 15 weeks. And I don't think that's really needed. And even, okay, maybe from my point of view, it's 51, because it's the other way around. Okay, but I don't think that's helpful. You need to reach proper, I don't think that's very helpful. Okay, I thought you can put gestures, eye contact, facing. Although there were some stumbles, I think, because you try to remember. But when you end it, you have this very weird expression, like you were unsure of, are you going properly or not? Not very sure about. Okay, should see, I think you have to stand firm. You were, I think, tilted to one side. Okay. Your hands also dangle at the side. You are leaning on the street. Okay. There was a slide or two that doesn't seem to match what you are seeing on the screen. So we want to be looking at. So because of your reading like meaning from the script, your gestures and eye contact is limited. Maybe they are limited. Okay, so we are saying, I think you need to rest your leg equally. Should stand firm. So the way you stand is more proper. Okay, generally confident, but towards the end you stumble. The enunciation, the ending consonants, enunciation, not very clear. Those ending consonants, be mindful of it. The gestures was also, yeah. Okay. Sometimes you look at the screen and then you zoom out, it's better thing what you see. I also need mindful of it. I think towards the end when you conclude, right? I think the end you PW terms, you don't talk about negative, positive. I talk about what you want to accomplish. You want people to continue to serve, right? No need to mention that anymore. Because your presentation is based on you are, but they are assessed separately and they are assessing based on how you speak, how well you speak and all that. So no need to use those very boring terms, positive and negative. I'll talk about maybe people that will talk at Patrick, about Patrick, and talk about the voluntary, continued interest and all that. So we just start at the end. Yeah, generally that's about it. You go improvement